At precisely 3:15 every afternoon, the same sound echoed through the Andersons' quiet suburban backyard. A single soft click as the weight of a paw met the glass of their patio door. The figure behind it never moved, never barked, never begged. It only watched. Still as a shadow, the scarred German shepherd stood vigil, eyes locked on the child who played inside. To those who noticed, he might have seemed an oddity. A skeletal, stray haunting the edges of comfort and safety. His ribs jutted through dull, matted fur. One ear bore a jagged notch. His coat, once noble and thick, hung in weary patches. But his eyes held something more, something ancient and loyal. From her garden next door, Eleanor Wilkins noticed him first. At 78, Eleanor had seen enough of life to recognize patterns others missed. A retired labor and delivery nurse, a widow of 12 years, and a devoted observer of human and animal behavior, she knew devotion when she saw it. That dog wasn't just loitering, he was waiting. She watched this silent ritual for days, weeks, always the same. The child, Lily, playing with blocks or dolls in the soft afternoon sun. The dog, unmoving, watching her through the glass. Occasionally, Sarah Anderson, Lily's aunt and now legal guardian, would tap the glass gently, frowning. "Shoo," she'd say, but the dog never flinched, never growled, just watched. Then one Tuesday, Eleanor saw something that stopped her mid-prune, garden shears frozen in her aching hands. The dog brought a gift. It was small and caked in mud, a once pink stuffed rabbit missing one ear, the fabric worn thin. He placed it carefully at the threshold of the door. Not tossed, not dropped, placed. And then he resumed his vigil. "Lord have mercy," Eleanor whispered, a hand rising instinctively to her lips. "That ain't just some stray." Inside the house, Lily paused. For a moment, the child's gaze met the dog's. Neither moved. And then, softly, a word escaped her. "Psst, doggy." It was one of the few words Lily had spoken since the accident. The mystery of the silent watcher, the scarred, steadfast dog, was only beginning to unravel. And what lay behind that glass door was more than a forgotten pet. It was the last tether to a past broken by tragedy, a loyalty undiminished by pain, and a promise made in the final moments of a family's darkest day. Somewhere, buried beneath, the scars and silence was a story, one of grief, one of memory, and one of an extraordinary bond between a child who had forgotten everything and the dog who remembered it all. Lily Matthews had once been the heart of a perfect world. At just 3 years old, she was a storm of golden curls and soft laughter, of mismatched socks and spontaneous hugs. She was the kind of child who made strangers smile and her parents proud beyond words. In the warm glow of their suburban Atlanta home, Lily's voice was a constant melody, her footsteps a drumbeat of joy. Jennifer and Thomas Matthews had built a life of quiet beauty. They were not wealthy, but they were rich in all the ways that counted love, laughter, and time spent together. Their home was filled with books, music, and a dog, Max. Max was more than a pet. He was family. A gift from Thomas to Jennifer when they first married, Max had been there through every chapter of their story. But from the moment they brought Lily home from the hospital, Max had found his true purpose. He wasn't just her guardian. He was her shadow, her silent protector. He watched over her as she slept, followed her through the house like a furry sentinel, and wagged his tail to every babbled secret she shared. Wherever Lily was, Max was never far behind. If she cried, he came running. If she laughed, he barked in celebration. If she fell, he nudged her gently, as if to say, "I've got you." Their bond was effortless, unspoken, complete. And in the quiet hours after Lily had gone to bed, Jennifer would sometimes remark to Thomas, "That dog would lay down his life for her." Neither of them knew how close to truth that would come. It happened on a stormy night, 11 months ago. Late visit to Jennifer's parents had gone long. Rain fell in torrents as the family made their way back along Interstate 85, the wipers struggling against the blur of water and darkness. Lily was asleep in her car seat, a stuffed pink rabbit clutched in her arms. Max lay in the back, head down but eyes alert. Somewhere behind them, headlights appeared, too close. The car didn't pass, it tailed them, unnervingly consistent. Thomas noticed. His hands gripped the wheel tighter. He changed lanes. The sedan followed. He accelerated. Still there. The unease thickened. Jennifer reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police." She never got the chance. What happened next was a blur, tires screeching, metal screaming. The car swerved, hydroplaned, flipped 3 times before landing upside down in a shallow ravine. Silence followed, and then the sound of Max's whimpering. First responders found the scene hours later. Jennifer and Thomas were declared dead, on impact. Lily had survived remarkably unharmed, physically. Her mind, however, was another matter. Traumatic brain injury. That's what they called it. Her memories, her speech, the vibrant personality she'd once had, all faded. Her mind had been wiped clean by trauma. She didn't recognize the faces of her rescuers. She didn't cry for her parents. She didn't speak at all. Max had been flung clear of the wreckage. He was badly injured. Punctured lung, broken ribs, lacerations. Yet somehow he had dragged himself back toward the mangled vehicle. Rescuers recalled how he had refused to be moved, howled in defiance until they pulled Lily from the car. They said he fought sedation, fought to stay near her. And when the van doors closed, his eyes followed hers. Then Max disappeared from public view, transferred to a local shelter for treatment. He was listed without a name, just a number. He underwent surgery, endured months of healing. When he was finally strong enough to walk again, he escaped, scaled a 6-foot fence, vanished into the night, and no one expected to see him again. Meanwhile, Lily was sent to live with Sarah and Robert Anderson, her aunt and uncle, 30 miles from her old home. Sarah, Jennifer's younger sister, had always loved Lily, but love alone wasn't enough to erase the fear. She was grieving too, and now she was guardian to a silent, broken child. They tried their best. Sarah redecorated the guest room with stars on the ceiling. Robert built a swing, set in the backyard. Every inch of their colonial house was reshaped around Lily's needs. But Lily didn't respond. She barely ate. She didn't play. Her eyes, once so full of wonder, now stared blankly at walls, as though searching for someone she no longer knew how to find. Dr. Patricia Reynolds, a pediatric neurologist, was cautious in her hope. "The injury has disrupted her speech and memory centers," she explained. "We may not recover the past, but she can build new neural connections, new memories. But new memories require connection, and Lily formed none. She rarely spoke, and when she did, the words were fragmented. She wouldn't look Sarah or Robert in the eye. Instead, she sat for hours, staring at the glass patio door that overlooked the backyard. And then, one day, at 3:15 p.m., a dog appeared, scarred, ribs showing, coat thin and dirty, but unmistakable. Max. He didn't bark. He didn't beg. He just stood there, silently watching the girl on the other side of the glass. Every day after that, like clockwork, Max returned. He never approached aggressively, never scratched at the door, just sat, still, waiting. Sarah didn't recognize him. To her, he was a stray, a possible threat. She tapped on the glass, tried to shoo him away. He never flinched, never responded, only stared, only watched. And Lily. Lily would stop whatever she was doing when Max appeared. She would tilt her head, eyes narrowing, a flicker of something moving behind the fog of her injury. And one day, a single word emerged from her lips, "Doggy." It was the first time Sarah had heard her speak with intent. Max had not forgotten, not the crash, not the child, not the words Thomas had whispered with blood on his lips. Watch her. Max had a mission, and he had found her again. From the beginning, Sarah Anderson had been clear. No strays, no exceptions. Her niece had already survived something most children would never even dream of. She wasn't going to take chances, not with Lily, not with the memories she couldn't reclaim, not with the fragile new life they were fighting to rebuild. So when she saw the scarred German shepherd outside their glass door, watching her niece every afternoon, her instinct was alarm, not awe. "Robert," she said one evening, standing by the patio door as thunder rolled overhead. "That dog's out there again." Rain battered the roof. Lightning split the sky in jagged silence before thunder cracked like a whip. Lily sat quietly nearby, stacking plastic blocks with unsettling precision, unfazed by the storm. But outside, the dog howled, a long, mournful sound that sliced through the downpour. Robert joined her at the glass, coffee mug in hand. There in the rain stood Max, soaked, shaking, howling like his heart was breaking. "He's terrified," Robert murmured. "We should let him in until the storm passes." Sarah's eyes never left the dog. "We don't know him. He could be sick, dangerous. What if he bites Lily?" "He's been coming here for weeks," Robert countered. "He hasn't shown a single sign of aggression. Look at him, he's skin and bones." But Sarah was unmoved. Her caution, born from grief and responsibility, eclipsed any sentiment. "No strays in the house. That's final." The next morning, Robert found the dog curled beneath the back porch. A shallow dip in the dirt showed where he'd tried to stay dry. Mud caked his paws. He trembled but didn't flee. He simply stared, waiting, as if he belonged. "I'm calling animal control," Sarah declared. Lily sat at the kitchen table, arranging cereal into a straight line instead of eating. "That dog needs care, and we need peace of mind." But before the call could be made, Robert noticed something half buried near the porch. He knelt and gently pulled a worn leather collar from the mud. The tags were nearly unreadable, caked in dirt. He rinsed them with the garden hose. His voice was tight when he said, "Sarah, you need to see this." The tag read simply, "Max Matthews," beneath the name Family, followed by a disconnected phone number. Sarah went still. "Matthews," she whispered. "Jennifer and Thomas." Before they could say more, Lily appeared at the glass door, her small hand pressed against the pane. On the other side, Max sat as still as ever, his eyes locked on hers. "Doggy," she whispered. Her voice trembled. One of the few words she had spoken since coming to live with them. An hour later, a knock came at the front door. A large man, in a tan uniform and baseball cap, introduced himself with a kind smile. "Name's Dale. Animal control." Robert led him around back, explaining everything as they went. When Dale saw the collar, his expression changed. He crouched beside Max, who didn't growl, didn't flinch. "Well, I'll be," he said. "We picked this fella up near that wreck on I-85 last year. Worst shape I've ever seen a living dog. Punctured lung, broken ribs. Vet said he wouldn't make it, but he just wouldn't quit." Sarah's voice cracked. "You mean this is the dog that was with my sister's family?" Dale nodded solemnly. "After he healed, he broke out of the shelter. Been missing ever since. No one expected he'd track the girl down." Robert blinked. "We're 30 miles away." "German shepherds," Dale said, lowering his voice. "They've got abilities that'll make the hair on your neck stand up. Loyalty like you wouldn't believe." Inside, Lily pressed her face to the glass again. Max wagged his tail, just once. That night, Sarah opened a photo album she had rescued from Jennifer and Thomas's home. She hadn't been able to look at it since the accident. Now, with trembling hands, she flipped through its pages. There it was, a picture of Lily as an infant, nestled in Jennifer's arms. In the background, Max sat alert and watchful. In another photo, Thomas cradled baby Lily while Max lay at his feet. He was their dog, Sarah whispered. Their family dog. Robert sat beside her, placing a steadying hand on her back. He's the only living connection Lily has left to her parents. Sarah closed the album. Practicality took over. "It doesn't matter. We can't keep a stray dog, especially one that size. What if he turns?" Robert met her eyes. What? If he's exactly what she needs. Outside, the rain returned, and beneath the porch, Max curled into a tight ball, facing the house, eyes open, watching, guarding. Animal control didn't take Max away that day. Dale made a few calls. Confirmed. The dog's history suggested they think on it for a while. Sometimes fate's got its reasons, he said. Wouldn't rush a thing like this. But Sarah's patience had limits. 3 days later, Max growled at the mailman just once, and that was enough. She called animal control again. This time they came with a crate. "I'm sorry," she told Robert, watching as Max was loaded into the van. "It's too much risk." Lily had been napping during the removal. When she woke, she went to the door, stared at the empty yard. She didn't cry. She just stood there, hand pressed against the glass, silent. That night, Robert couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, haunted by the look in Max's eyes as they took him away. Not anger, not fear, just resignation. As if he were memorizing the house he'd fought so hard to find again. He knew her, Robert whispered, and she knew him. "We don't know that," Sarah replied. But doubt crept into her voice. Dr. Reynolds said she won't recover memories from before the crash. Robert turned. But what if some part of her still remembers? The next morning, Eleanor Wilkins showed up at their door with a basket of muffins. That poor creature. "Showed up on my porch today," she said without preamble. Thinner than a rail, limping. Max had escaped again, climbed another fence. "They said not to bother bringing him back," Eleanor added, voice firm. "Said he'd just escape again. Said, animals know where they belong, and that dog belongs here." Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Eleanor cut her off. "Listen here, young lady. I've lived 80 years. I know devotion when I see it. That dog ain't dangerous. He's on a mission." As if summoned by the conversation, a scratching came at the back door. Lily, listlessly pushing cereal around her bowl, perked up. "Doggy," she said. Then she climbed down from her chair and toddled toward the sound. Robert opened the door. Max stood there, panting, filthy, exhausted, but with something in his mouth. A pink child's shoe, glitter-covered, caked in dirt. Sarah gasped. That's from the crash, from the photos, from the report." Max set the shoe gently at Lily's feet and sat back. Lily picked it up, examined it closely. Her brow furrowed. Something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition. Detective Nathan Carson had been with the Fulton County Sheriff's Department for 15 years, and in that time, he'd learned 2 truths. First, most accidents weren't really accidents, and second, the devil was always in the details. When the Matthews case landed on his desk the day after the crash, it seemed tragically simple. A freak storm, hydroplaning, a young couple dead, a child miraculously alive. Case closed, but something about it never sat right with him. There had been no skid marks, no real attempt to avoid the crash, and a blurry traffic camera photo had shown a dark sedan following too closely moments before the wreck. Too many pieces didn't quite fit. Still, without concrete evidence, there was nothing to pursue. The case was archived as a tragic accident, until now. Carson sat at his desk rereading the email forwarded by Animal Control. Subject line, "Dog from I-85, crash found alive, returned to child." He frowned. Dogs didn't track people 30 miles unless they had a reason. And kids didn't say their first word in months to a stranger, unless something inside them recognized that stranger. He picked up the phone. "Get me everything we have on James Whitaker." Whitaker had been the Matthews' former employer, a real estate magnate with fingers in everything from development to local politics. Jennifer Matthews had worked in his legal department. 6 weeks before the crash, she'd filed a formal complaint, suspicious accounting, unfiled tax records, illegal land use contracts. 3 days after that, she went silent, and 6 weeks later, she was dead. Carson stood and grabbed his coat. It was time to dig up what had been buried. Back at the Anderson house, Max was no longer just a visitor. He was a fixture. He slept by Lily's bed, waited by the door for her school bus, trotted beside her in the backyard as she slowly relearned how to play. With Max nearby, she laughed. She spoke. She touched the world around her again. Sarah watched, half in awe, half in fear. Her sister's dog, this broken, battered creature, was somehow pulling Lily back from wherever her mind had gone. Dr. Reynolds was stunned. "There's more to memory than science can explain," she said during one visit. "Smells, sounds, bonds. Sometimes emotional memory survives where factual memory doesn't." One afternoon, while cleaning the garage, Robert found a sealed cardboard box tucked high on a shelf. It was labeled Jennifer Legal Docs. Likely recovered from the old house. Forgotten. Inside were files, client contracts, printouts, scribbled notes, and at the bottom, a USB drive. He plugged it into his laptop. The files inside were encrypted, but the file names were telling. Whitaker Development Contracts. Internal email records. Kickback Schedule 2019. He called Sarah into the room. These are whistleblower files." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "You think this has something to do with the crash?" Robert nodded slowly. "I think Jennifer was about to expose something, and someone made sure she didn't." Max, lying at their feet, lifted his head, as if he knew. Meanwhile, Detective Carson reopened the case under a new file name. Potential Foul Play, Matthews Incident. He visited Jennifer's former office, spoke to 2 co-workers who remembered her growing nervous in the final weeks. One mentioned late-night calls. Another recalled her saying, "If anything happens to me, check my files." The same day, Carson paid a visit to James Whitaker. The businessman's office was glass and steel, cold and modern. His smile was polished. "Detective," he said, extending a hand. "How can I help?" "I'm re-examining the crash involving your former employee, Jennifer Matthews." Whitaker raised a brow. "Terrible thing. She was very bright. Such a loss." Carson didn't blink. "Did you know she was preparing to file formal charges against your firm?" Whitaker's smile froze. "That's absurd. Baseless accusations." Carson nodded slowly. "Of course." But as he left, he noticed something chilling. In the parking garage below Whitaker's building sat a black sedan. The same model seen in the blurred photo from the highway camera. He made a note. That night, Max woke with a start. He growled low, ears up. In the darkness, Robert stirred. "What is it, boy?" But Max was already at the window, growling louder now. Out front, a black car idled at the curb. Its headlights dimmed, and then, just as suddenly, it pulled away. Robert stepped outside with a flashlight. No one in sight, but Max stayed at the window all night. The next day, Lily drew a picture, just crayons and scribbles, but in it, a car was chasing another car, and a dog stood in the middle of the road barking. Sarah held the drawing with shaking hands. She remembers. Carson returned with a search warrant 2 days later. The USB drive was turned over. So were Jennifer's files. It was enough to launch a formal investigation. And it wasn't long before the cracks began to show. Emails, financial records, multiple shell companies, and confirmation. Jennifer Matthews had uncovered an illegal kickback scheme worth millions. A week before her death, she had met with a journalist. The meeting had been canceled. No explanation. It was no longer a question of coincidence. It was conspiracy, and someone was watching the Anderson family. That evening, Robert returned home to find their mailbox forced open. Inside, a single scrap of paper. "Tell the dog to stop watching," Robert called Carson. "They're watching us," he said. And from the shadows, Max growled. The evening began like any other. Lily played in the living room, arranging her dolls in a perfect circle, whispering to them in half-formed sentences. Robert was finishing dishes. Sarah folded laundry in the next room. Max lay by the front door, head on his paws, ears alert, but something in the air was different. The wind outside was still, too still. The quiet had weight. And Max didn't sleep that night. He didn't even blink. At 11:14 p.m., he stood up. He moved through the house on silent pause, checking each room like a soldier on patrol. When he reached Lily's bedroom, he paused at the door, sniffed the air, and growled, low and almost inaudible. Then came the sound. A faint creak, floorboards shifting outside, too precise to be wind, too soft to be innocent. Max moved fast. He ran to the front window and barked, sharp and loud, shattering the silence. Sarah jumped up. "What's going on?" Robert came running. Max barked again, deeper this time. Outside, a figure darted from the side yard, dressed in black, hooded. He bolted for the street where a car waited, engine running. The vehicle peeled away before Robert could catch a plate number. They called the police, but Max had already known. Detective Carson arrived at dawn. Tire tracks were found in the soft dirt. A crowbar near the back fence. The intent was clear. It was a break-in, Carson confirmed, but not a robbery. They didn't try to steal anything. They were watching or warning. Sarah sat on the couch, arms wrapped around Lily, who clung to Max like a lifeline. "They came because of what we found, didn't they?" Carson nodded. "Whitaker's people are trying to clean up loose ends, but he's slipping. The files you gave me are enough to indict, and the girl's memory may be more of a threat than they realized." "She's just a child," Sarah whispered. "She doesn't even understand what she saw." "But they don't know that," Carson said. "To them, she's a liability." Max lifted his head, barked once, loud, protective. Carson's eyes met Robert's. "You need protection." "We have Max," Robert replied. "He's the only reason we're still safe." That night, Sarah found Lily in the hallway with a crayon and a piece of paper. She was drawing again, but not houses or trees. This time she drew a face, sharp nose, thin lips, cold eyes. "Who is this?" Sarah asked softly. Lily looked up, her voice clear. "The man in the car." Sarah's heart skipped. "From the crash?" Lily nodded. "He was yelling. Mommy said, 'Just drive.' Then the loud noise came. Sarah showed the drawing to Carson the next morning. He paled. This looks like Whitaker's driver." That was enough. Armed with the files, Lily's partial memory, and the pressure of public scrutiny once the story leaked, a warrant was issued. James Whitaker was arrested for obstruction of justice, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. His empire began to crumble. Reporters camped outside the courthouse. His associates turned. One by one, pieces fell. But still, Sarah didn't feel safe, because someone had been in their yard, and they weren't the only ones Whitaker had hurt. One night, a small crowd gathered outside the Anderson home. News had spread about the dog who saved the girl, the child who remembered, the files that brought down a giant. Lily didn't understand why cameras pointed at her window. She just held Max's ear and whispered stories into his fur. Reporters asked about the miracle dog, about memory, about justice. Sarah stepped outside to face them. "Yes," she said. "The dog remembered what we couldn't. He found her when no one else could. He protected her when no one else saw the danger. He waited, because love remembers." A pause. "But this isn't about a miracle. It's about loyalty and courage, and the fact that sometimes the only one who sees what's coming is the one no one was watching." Inside, Max lifted his head, eyes steady, guarding still. 2 months passed. Whitaker's trial began. Testimonies, evidence, and Lily's drawings, delivered through child advocates, formed part of the narrative. Max was mentioned in headlines around the country. People sent treats, toys, paintings of him, offers to adopt. But Max never left Lily's side. And then one afternoon, Lily said a full sentence. They were in the yard, the sky golden with fall light. She looked at Sarah and said, "Max was with me in the car." It was the most she'd ever said. Sarah knelt, tears in her eyes. "Do you remember him?" Lily nodded. "He barked when the car flipped. He was hurt, but he came back." Sarah hugged her tight. "I remember," Lily whispered. "I remember Mommy and Daddy, and Max lying beside them, closed his eyes, not from exhaustion, but peace. He had done what no doctor, no therapist, no medication could. He had brought her home. Winter melted into spring, and the world outside began to soften. Trees unfurled new leaves. The backyard, once a muted canvas of browns and grays, turned green again. The swing set Robert had built, once silent, now creaked gently as Lily played, laughing, her voice stronger with each passing week. Max was always close, at the edge of the yard, at the foot of her bed, in the rearview mirror during car rides. His coat, once dull and thinned by hardship, now shimmered in the sun. He'd filled out again, still lean, still scarred, but proud, healthy, whole. He had come home. The media frenzy faded with time. The name James Whittaker was now synonymous with disgrace, his empire undone by the smallest voice and the dog who would not forget. The case inspired legislation across several states. Lily's Law, offering increased protections for whistleblowers and the families they left behind. But for Lily, the world remained small, safe, familiar. She no longer called Max just Doggy. She called him Maxie. She spoke in full sentences, asked questions, remembered, not all at once, but in flashes, in fragments. Sometimes she'd say, "Mommy liked purple tulips," or "Daddy made pancakes on Sundays." Sometimes she'd say, "Max was there." Max barked when the car broke. Each time Sarah would nod through tears. Each memory was a miracle. One afternoon, Eleanor Wilkins came by with a basket of homemade biscuits, some for the humans, some for Max. She sat on the porch watching Lily braid dandelions into Max's fur. "That dog is a sentinel," she said softly. "He waited until the danger was past. And now he watches because he can finally rest." Sarah smiled. "He never gave up. He never would. That's what loyalty looks like." Inside, Robert was preparing dinner when he glanced out the window. Something about the stillness caught his breath. Lily was curled beside Max in the grass, both asleep in the sunshine. Max's body was still but peaceful. He stepped outside, and in that moment, he knew. Max passed away quietly, in his sleep. No pain, no struggle, just peace. The vet said it was his heart, likely weakened from his injuries, but Robert believed. It was more than that. Max had stayed just long enough. He had waited for the child to remember, for the danger to pass, for his family to be safe. And then, with his promise kept, he let go. They buried him beneath the oak tree at the edge of the yard. Lily placed a toy rabbit, muddy and well-loved, beside the headstone. It read, "Max, loyal guardian, beloved friend." He came back. Neighbors came. Eleanor brought flowers. Dale from Animal Control stood quietly at the back, hat in hand. Even Detective Carson showed up, nodding respectfully. Lily didn't cry at the service. But that night she sat by the door long after bedtime, her small hand pressed to the glass. "Maxie's watching the stars now," she whispered. And Sarah, kneeling beside her, whispered back, "Yes, baby. And he's watching us too." Years passed. Lily grew. She became bright, confident. Her speech fully returned. Her memory, though patchy in parts, stayed intact where it mattered most. She never forgot Max. Every year on the day of his passing, they planted something new by his grave. Tulips, a small tree, once even a wind chime that sang softly in the breeze. And every so often, when the sun set just right and the shadows grew long across the porch, Sarah would swear she saw a shape at the edge of the yard. A familiar silhouette, proud, still, watching. Some promises, after all, are too strong for time to break, and some love never leaves the door.